Hey, are you planning your very first camping trip? Whether this is the first camping trip of your life, or perhaps you camped as a kid and now you find yourself being a mom and dad and you want to take kids, your own kids on their very first camping trip, and you just want a refresher on what to take when you go camping, then this video is for you. Howdy y'all, this is Mark from Camping Forge, and as you can see, I'm hanging out here in Camp My Backyard. But I wanted to take some time and share with you what I think you should bring on your first camping trip. So let's start with location. Where are we going to go camping? The thing is most important, I would not recommend going on a primitive backcountry camping trip on your first camping trip. I know it might sound romantic, but you do need a set of skills and preparation to do that. And if you got people in your family who are leery of camping anyway, they're probably not going to enjoy that as much. Instead, look for a prepared campground, something that's got some amenities. So that way, you know, for example, during the day, they're going to be busy, they're going to have fun. So look for things like state parks. Look for campgrounds like from KOA, or private campgrounds like KOA, or resorts like Jellystone. That way, you know that they're going to have water. You can trust the water to drink. You know, they're going to have bathrooms. They're going to have stuff for the kids to do. And then as they get more comfortable camping, you can then work on eventually getting, you know, perhaps trying out some more remote, primitive locations if that's what you want to do. Other hand, hey, if you always just want to stay at prepared campgrounds, that's perfectly cool too. As long as you're outside having fun, that's the most important. Next, we're thinking about you're going to need a tent. So with a tent, what you want to look for is a 3-season tent. So that represents our most common seasons we go camping: spring, summer, fall. The thing is, you also want to make sure, look at the size. So it's tempting to say, well, look, it's going to be me and my spouse and then the 2 kids. So we just need two-person tents. That's not going to be enough space. Everybody's going to be squashed together. So what you want to do is make sure the tent is sized for at least 1 person more than you expect to be in the tent, to give you a little extra room. So for example, if it's going to be 2 of you, you want at least a 3-person tent. And if you're tall like me, like I'm 6'4", you really would think is add an extra person on top of that. So because this is a 2-person tent, and while I can get in there and I got enough room to lay down, it's still pretty tight. And I would prefer to have, particularly if I'm not going on a backpacking trip, to have like a 4-person tent, just to make sure I had enough room to really stretch out inside the tent. Next, let's talk about sleeping bags or blankets. Because for sleep, if you're going to go with sleeping bags, again, just like the tent, we want a 3-season tent. We want a 3-season sleeping bag. And there are going to be also temperature ratings. Now, this is my summer bag. It's a lot thinner than my winter bag because, like I said, I should point out, I'm in Dallas, Texas. So most of my camping season is quite warm. I mean, I'm filming this in late April, and it's already in the upper 80s, lower 90s. I definitely don't need my winter bag at this point anymore, assuming I'm just camping around here. So, you know, a thin sleeping bag is fine. If you're saying to yourself, I'm not sure we're ready to go commit to camping and investing a lot of money in our camping gear, you can take blankets. My mom camped in the 1950s growing up, and they just camped with blankets. They didn't have sleeping bags. Now, one thing I do want you to make sure you take with you, besides a blanket or a sleeping bag, is either an air mattress or a sleeping pad. This is my sleeping pad. It's my own personal one. Because quick aside, it's just me and my wife. My wife will go camping with me as long as we're in a RV or cabin. The tent camping stuff is just me by myself with like a camping group, some camping friends. But anyway, I take a single sleeping pad. If you want to sleep with your spouse, then you can look like an air mattress, or maybe you're like, I already have an air mattress and I don't want to invest in a sleeping pad. That's fine too. In a pinch, if you got like a yoga mat, you could take that too. But you definitely want something underneath you for two reasons. One, it's comfort. The ground is hard. There's rocks, there's twigs, there's roots, there's just clumps of dirt. So you want some extra padding. Secondly, it's acting as insulation. The ground is going to be colder than your body. So physics dictates is that we're going to try and reach equilibrium. Thus, a lot of times people think is I have a really thick sleeping bag, but I still feel cold. And the reason is they don't have anything underneath them. And so the cold ground is literally sucking the heat out of their body. So you want that sleeping pad or air mattress underneath you. Next, let's think about clothing. Since you're probably going car camping, meaning you're just gonna, you're not backpacking anywhere, just the clothes you knock around around the house with, t-shirts, shorts, jeans, tennis shoes, basically the stuff you already own, should be good enough for you to go on your first couple of camping trips. You don't need specialized equipment, specialized clothing for that. You're not worrying about weight because you're not backpacking 100 miles along the Appalachian Trail. Most important would be to be prepared to dress in layers. Also that, remember, you're going to be outside, you're going to be dirty, you're going to get muddy. So you may want to take clothes that you're thinking about getting rid of anyway. So that way, if you get home and go, I don't want to wash this, you can just throw it in the trash. So, sorry, I was getting my next round of equipment ready for you. Beyond that, let's start thinking about food and drink. So make sure, again, you're not going to have refrigeration. So you're going to need, if you're going to bring meat, that you're going to keep a cooler and you want to keep it cold. Modern coolers do a pretty good job of keeping things cold, particularly stuff that's made for camping. They have thicker insulation as long as you keep them closed. You'll be surprised how long they'll keep the food cold and drinks cold. But one recommendation we typically tell people is keep your drinks and your food in separate coolers, because you're going to be getting drinks more frequently than you are the food. And so that one, the drink cooler, can get open and closed more frequently. And that way, if it gets warmer and the ice melts, it's not as much a bad situation as if the food cooler gets melts faster before the camping trip is over. Speaking of food, we're going to think about the campfire. Make sure when you're if you're going to have a campfire, first off, make sure you're allowed to build a campfire. Follow any safety, of course, follow fire safety precautions. But I mean, is check to make sure you're allowed to build a campfire. Make sure you build it where they tell you to, like in a fire ring. When it comes to the wood, follow their rules around where you can source your wood. You can't just necessarily bring wood from home. We want to protect our forests from invasive insects and other kind of pests. That's why a lot of times they'll say you have to buy the firewood there, just to keep to reduce the chances of bad things getting into the forest and hurting our trees. When we think about making the fire, bring 3 or 4 Bic lighters with you. These are the most reliable way. These are the most reliable way to start a fire. I'm sure if you go on YouTube, you're going to see a lot of people starting fires with ferro rods and knives. We'll have a video on how to do that later, and that is something fun you can do when you're kind of bored and you just want to practice bushcraft. But if you want a reliable way to start a fire, Bic lighters are the way to go. Now, after campfires, when it gets dark, we want to make sure we still can see, and that's why we want to make sure everybody has a headlamp. Again, you don't have to spend a lot of money on any headlamps. You can go off, get nearest big box store or Amazon. You can get your headlamps. The best thing about most important with our headlamps is make sure it has a red light on it, or maybe green light. These are the night vision lights. The reason why we want those lights is, first off, is they will protect your own night vision. So when you turn the light off, you'll adjust the darkness faster. Second, when we're sitting around the campfire, we won't blind the person sitting across from us. And of course, the best thing about a headlamp over a flashlight is you still have your hands free. Finally, it's something you need to bring, but hopefully never use. And that's our first aid kit. Now, you don't have to buy a special first aid kit just to go camping. If you got the Band-Aids and rubbing alcohol and the antibiotic ointment and itching cream sitting in the cabinet, you can put those in a Ziploc bag and bring them with you. All right, if you have gotten one tip from this video, I would love for you to subscribe. If you'd like even more camping tips, please come visit us over at campingforge.com. And before we go, I would love to know what is the top of your campsite bucket list.